How are you? I hope all are good. Today let me start SST chapter number 2 from trade to territory यानी कि व्यापार से लेके क्षेत्र तक. Let's begin. आइए पढ़ते हैं क्या है इस चैप्टर में. The Mughal Empire founded by Babur in 1526 began to decline following the death of Aurangzeb. So the last of the great Mughals in 1707, by 1750 the Mughal Empire had been reduced to just a faint shadow of its illustrious past. It had already disintegrated, yielding places to a number of regional kingdoms. Okay, so this situation proved to be a blessing in disguise for the English East India Company, which was keen to play a dominant role in the political and economic affair of the Indian subcontinent. Okay, mercantilism and the expansion of European trade. मतलब यूरोपियन जो व्यापार है वो कैसे बढ़ा, कैसे उसका विस्तार हुआ. In Europe, mercantilism became a popular economic theory and practice from the 17th century. It held that the prosperity of a country depended on its capability to produce more than it consumes and export more than it imported in order to maintain a positive balance of trade. Okay, so overseas trade carried out, but the sea routes were the most important features of the practice of mercantilism. So the origin of the English East India Company and its powers lay in the economic theory and practice of mercantilism. Okay, origin of the East India Company in East. अब कैसे जन्म हुआ ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी का? ईस्ट में, पूर्व में. So the EEIC was established in London in the year 1600 by a royal charter issued by Queen Elizabeth. Okay, so Queen Elizabeth I, the Queen of England. According to this charter, the company got the sole rights of trade in the East India, which included all places east of Cape of Good Hope. Early years of the EEIC. Captain William Hawkins led the first voyage of the EEIC to India in 1608. His crew sailed into the port of Surat. He succeeded in obtaining certain trade concessions from the then Mughal Emperor Jahangir. As a result, a trading post or factory was established in Surat by the English in 1613. In 1615, Sir Thomas Roe arrived in India as the ambassador of King James I of England. He received a royal command from the Mughal Emperor Jahangir. This royal order allowed the EEIC to set up factories in Agra. मतलब इस order ने मतलब ये जो royal order निकला था, इनको अंग्रेजों को जो है ब्रिटिश सरकार को अलाउ कर दिया था कि वो अपनी फैक्ट्री जो है आगरा में, ब्रोच, मॉडर्न डेज, बहरूच, अहमदाबाद एंड सम अदर प्लेसेस. तो इनको अलाउ कर दिया गया था कि आप अपनी फैक्ट्रीज जो है यहाँ पे लगा लीजिए. सो प्रायर टू रोज विजिट टू इंडिया, द फर्स्ट इंग्लिश फैक्ट्री इन साउथ इंडिया वाज एस्टैब्लिश्ड इन मासूलीपट्टनम इन 1611. Subsequently, the first English factories in eastern India were established in Balasore and Hooghly, 1651. Besides, the EEIC also began to set up much bigger and strongly fortified operational bases at the presidency towns of Madras, now Chennai. So Bombay, Mumbai and Kolkata. They set up the Fort St. George in Madras in 1639 in a piece of land they received on lease from the local Raja. है ना, किनसे? वहाँ के लोकल राजा थे, उनसे उन्होंने ये जमीन जो है लीज पे ली थी. In 1668, the island of Bombay under Portuguese control was given away in dowry to the English King Charles II by his father-in-law and the King of Portugal. Shortly afterwards, the EEIC got it from Charles II on lease and fortified it for protection against the Marathas. Soon, Bombay became an important base of the EEIC in India. So, in 1698, the company got to the zamindari of 3 villages of Sutanuti, Govindpur and Kalikata and built from William around its factory. That was how the city of Calcutta came into existence. In 1717, the Mughal ruler Farrukh Shah issued a farman confirming the EEIC's right to trade in Bengal. किसने? मुगल रूलर था फारूक शाह. उसने जो एक फरमान जारी कर दिया था कि जो EEIC है उसको वहां पे, कहाँ पे, बंगाल में व्यापार करने का राइट है. Bihar and Odisha, upon an annual payment of a nominal sum, they also got the additional rights to trade in the Deccan and Gujarat. The EEIC and other European companies made huge profits by the trade concessions they got from the Indian rulers. They bought goods, especially cotton clothes, silks, spices, okay, and saltpeter, etc. in India and exported them to यूरोप. कहाँ पे? यूरोप में एक्सपोर्ट होती थी ये चीजें. भारत में सामान बनता था और बाहर यूरोप में मतलब जो है ब्रिटिश सरकार उसको बाहर एक्सपोर्ट करती थी. द पुर्तगीज. In 1498, Portuguese navigator and explorer Vasco da Gama discovered the new sea route that linked India to Europe by the Cape of Good Hope. तो उसने क्या खोज की? एक सी रूट, समुद्री रास्ता जो है उसने खोजा, कहां से? इंडिया से यूरोप तक जाने का. द रूट टेकन बाय वास्को डी गामा's crew कैन बी रिप्रेजेंटेड. सबसे पहले भारत आया था ये, ठीक है, एज यूरोप, वेस्ट अफ्रीकन कोस्ट, साउदर्न अफ्रीका, केप ऑफ गुड होप, कैलिकट, मॉडर्न डे कोझिकोड इन केरला. This had become necessary because of the rise of the Ottoman Empire in Turkey and West Asia that prevented European traders from using the traditional routes. Subsequently, several groups of Portuguese traders reached the Malabar coast in South India. They established settlement at Calicut, Cochin, Goa, Daman and Diu. Goa continued to be occupied by the Portuguese till 1968 when it was liberated and become a part of India. Okay, so the Portuguese were the first European power to establish their trading and administrative centers in India as well as many other parts of Southeast Asia. They controlled several important sea routes in the region. After the arrival of other more powerful trade rivals from Europe, however, the Portuguese could only manage to retain their positions in Western India. By the early 17th century, the Dutch too were exploring the possible of trade in the Indian Ocean. The Dutch established their trading centers at Surat, Ahmedabad, trading centers at Surat, Ahmedabad, Broch, okay, Nagapatnam and Masuripatnam. However, the Dutch were more interested in the Far East. They established a colonial empire in Java and Indonesia. The French East India Company, established in 1664, sought to expand its base in India and posed a tough challenge to the EEIC. Okay, so the first French factory was established at Surat in 1668. The early French settlements in India were Pondicherry, okay, Chandernagar, Mahe and Karaikal. When Dupleix was appointed the governor of the French East India Company in the mid-18th century, his ambition of establishing a French-Indian empire brought him in direct conflict with the EEIC. Struggle for power. Power के लिए struggle. After the establishment of trading companies by the various European powers, a conflict broke out among them during the 17th and 18th century. The English and the French companies, supported by local Indian rulers, fought several wars. By the middle of the 18th century, the EEIC eventually succeeded in outclassing all other Europeans' power. Okay, so the Battle of Plassey, Plassey का युद्ध, ये सबसे famous है. अलीवर्दी खान, the Nawab of Bengal, died in 1756. Siraj-ud-Dowla, who was a strong ruler, became the next Nawab of Bengal. है ना? इसके मरने के बाद, अलीवर्दी के बाद कौन बना? सिराजुद्दौला जो है बंगाल का एक नया नवाब बना. So the company officials were not in favor of him as it did not grant them any trade concession and other privileges. उसने जो है कोई भी जो है फेवर नहीं दिया किसको? इनको सीसीआई को, ठीक है, जो ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी थी सीसीआई को कोई भी प्रिविलेज नहीं दिया, कोई फेवर उन्हें नहीं दिया, कोई परमिशन नहीं दी उन्हें कंसेशन की किसी भी चीज की. So they started conspiring against him and sided with his rival. So this angered the Nawab and he ordered the company to stay away from the political matters of the state. ठीक है? So he also ordered the company to stop fortifications and pay taxes. कि कंपनी को जो है टैक्स पे करना होगा. All these talks and negotiations failed. ये सारी जितनी बातें हैं, जितने भी negotiations हुए थे, ये सब फेल हो गए. Okay, so as a result, the Nawab marched with 30,000 soldiers towards the English factory at Qasim Bazaar, locked the warehouse, disarmed all Englishmen, captured many officials and blockaded the English ships. Next, he marched to Calcutta to capture the company's fort there. Okay, so the British sent a strong contingent under the command of Robert Clive, who met Nawab Sirajuddaulah's army at Plassey in 1757 CE. Mir Jafar, who was the commander-in-chief of the Nawab's army, Jagat Seth, who was a rich banker, and several others conspired with the British against Sirajuddaulah. Mir Jafar was promised the Nawab's title upon the defeat of Sirajuddaulah. As a result of this treachery, Sirajuddaulah was defeated and executed. The Battle of Plassey was the first major victory for the British because of Robert Clive. So Mir Jafar was made the new Nawab of Bengal. He was a puppet who served the British. और वो उनके हाथों का puppet बन गया ब्रिटिश सरकार का Mir Jafar. So meeting their monetary demands, however, when he tried to oppose, he was replaced by Mir Qasim as the new Nawab. Mir Qasim granted the company the right to collect revenue of the district of Burdwan, Midnapur and Chittagong. Mir Qasim was loyal to the British. जो मीर कासिम था ना वो ब्रिटिश सरकार के लिए मतलब ब्रिटिश जो अंग्रेजों के लिए बहुत लॉयल था. ओके, सो फॉर अ फ्यू इयर्स बट लेटर ही कुड नॉट कॉम्प्रोमाइज विद देयर पॉलिसीज. उसके बाद क्या किया, कुछ समय बाद उसने जो भी उसकी पॉलिसीज थी उसके साथ कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं किया. ही वांटेड टू फ्री हिमसेल्फ फ्रॉम देयर क्लचेस. He got his army trained in the art of modern warfare. Next, he removed all duties on internal trade and gave equality right to both Indian and British traders. ठीक है, this ended the trade monopoly of the British. So the British moved against Mir Qasim. अब क्या हुआ, जब उसने अपना चलाना शुरू कर दिया, जो भारतीय व्यापार को भी उसने ब्रिटिश व्यापार के साथ जोड़ना शुरू कर दिया, मतलब उनको बराबर का हक देना शुरू कर दिया, तो फिर क्या हुआ, ब्रिटिश सरकार को इसमें भी प्रॉब्लम हुई. अब उन्होंने क्या किया, वो उसके अगेंस्ट हो गए. क्या हुआ, बैटल ऑफ बक्सर, अंग्रेजों के खिलाफ और मीर कासिम के दोनों उसमें आए. फिर बक्सर के युद्ध में मीर कासिम allied himself with Shujauddaulah and Shah Alam II. So Shujauddaulah was the Nawab of Awadh and Shah Alam II was the 17th Mughal emperor. So their combined forces met the British at Buxar on 22 October 1764. However, the combined forces were badly defeated. So this victory allowed the British to establish a stronger rule. Consequences of Battle of Buxar. So the Battle of Buxar exposed the weakness of the Indian rulers. The Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha were given to the British. This meant that the company collected revenue or taxes from these provinces to finance all its activities including wars and expansion in India. So the collection of Diwani helped the British deal with their inconveniences. Earlier the British had to use gold and silver brought from Britain to buy goods in India as they had no way of gaining direct revenue from India. So the victory of the Battle of Plassey and acquiring of Diwani now meant that the company could use Indian revenue for its expenses. So this revenue was used for buying cotton and silk, maintaining army and naval forces, and building forts and other infrastructures. So the revenue thus collected was enough for the company. It becomes self-sufficient and powerful. So the British East India Company became an actual ruler with revenue and military under its control. After the victory in Buxar, Robert Clive, who became the governor of Bengal in 1964, introduced system of government. So according to this system, the right to collect revenue and the power of jurisdiction stayed with the British, while the responsibility of the administration was given to the Nawab of Bengal. This meant the British enjoyed all the powers but no responsibility. Ironically, the Nawab had no power, but the main responsibility of administering to province was on his shoulders, with the small amount of money given by the company. So this cunning arrangement by the British was a challenging task for the Nawab. अब जो नवाब था उसके ऊपर जिम्मेदारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी तो थी, पूरा एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन उसे दे रखा है, बट सारी पावर यूज कौन करता था, ब्रिटिश. ठीक है, कहने को नवाब वो था, सारी मतलब कि तुम हो, तुम शासक हो यहाँ पे, लेकिन पावर किसके हाथ में थी, ब्रिटिश सरकार के हाथ में थी. तो ये इस चीज को बड़ा एंजॉय कर रहे थे और बहुत ही चालाकी से ये अरेंजमेंट जो है ब्रिटिश सरकार कर रही थी. ठीक है, टास्क फॉर द नवाब. इट इज नोन एज द ड्यूअल सिस्टम ऑफ गवर्नमेंट. ये ड्यूअल सिस्टम था, है ना, पावर किसी के हाथ में बट उसका यूज कोई और कर रहा है। The main sufferers of this system were the common people. अब ये जो ड्यूअल सिस्टम चल रहा था सरकार का, इससे सफर कौन कर रहा था? सबसे ज्यादा जो कॉमन लोग हैं, जो कॉमन पीपल थे, वो इस चीज को सफर कर रहे थे। Okay, so the company now had more power and authority in India. It took land and a vast sum of money. So from the Nawabs of Bengal in the form of gifts. The acquired wealth led to corruption within the company. Robert Clive was given the responsibility of outstanding the corruption within the company administration. However, he had gained a large amount of wealth for himself, for which he was brought under questioning by the British Parliament in 1772. So this, however, did not mean that all the officials were corrupt under his administration. Many had come to earn to provide their families with comfortable life, but had perished due to war and diseases. So those who had managed to go back with large amount of wealth led a luxurious life. Wars with Mysore. Hyder Ali 761 to 1782 and his son Tipu Sultan 782 to 1799 were powerful rulers of Mysore. They were against the British and opposed their policies. A large part of the spice trade was under the control of Mysore state. After the death of Hyder Ali, his son Tipu Sultan became the ruler of Mysore. He took certain steps like stopping the export. क्या किया उसने? Of sandalwood. ठीक है, चंदन की लकड़ी का जो है एक्सपोर्ट बंद करा दिया उसने. पेपर एंड कार्डामोम थ्रू द पोर्ट्स ऑफ हिज किंगडम. काली मिर्च और इलायची का एक्सपोर्ट कम करा दिया. He also stopped the local merchants from trading with the company. He maintained good relations with the French, who were the rivals of the British. Tipu modernized his army. अब फ्रेंच कौन थे? अंग्रेजों के दुश्मन थे. तो उसने क्या किया? अपने जो है संबंध उससे बनाए, टीपू सुल्तान ने फ्रेंच से. Okay, so with the help of the French, the British saw Anglo-Mysore as a threat developing against the company. 4 Mysore wars were fought between the rulers of Mysore and the British. 4 युद्ध हुए थे ब्रिटिश सरकार के और मैसूर के शासक के अगेंस्ट. The first Anglo-Mysore war was won by the Hyder Ali. However, he died in the second war while his son Tipu Sultan continued to fight. In the third Anglo-Mysore war, the British formed an alliance with other rulers and defeated Tipu Sultan. Large parts of land from Mysore were taken and Tipu refused, and it led to the fourth Anglo-Mysore war. The fourth Anglo-Mysore war, popularly called the Battle of Seringapatam, was the final battle between the British and Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan died fighting to defend his capital, Seringapatam. Tipu Sultan's family was exiled to Vellore, and the rule of Mysore was given to Voders, who accepted the subsidiary alliances. British expansion under Lord Wellesley, 1798 to 1805. Different governor-generals came up with different ideas and policies to expand the British Empire in India. Lord Wellesley followed 2 policies. One was the policy of war, and the other was known as subsidiary alliance. Under the policy of subsidiary alliance, the princely states of India had the hand over their sovereignty to the British in exchange of protection. Various Indian rulers were asked to sign the subsidiary alliance and agree to its terms and conditions. War with Marathas. The defeat in the Third Battle of Panipat in 1761 had weakened the power of the Marathas. The Maratha kingdom was divided into many states under different chiefs who belonged to different dynasties like Sindhia, Holkar, Gaikwad and Bhosle. Okay, all these chiefs were under a Peshwa or the Prime Minister. Mahanji Sindhia and Nana Fadnavis were 2 of the known Maratha soldiers of that time. The British and the Marathas fought 3 wars. The first war, 1775 to 1782, ended with the Treaty of Salbai. The second, 1803 to 1805, war ended with the British capturing Agra, Odisha and Delhi also. So the third Anglo-Maratha war totally destroyed the Marathas. The Peshwa was retired, given a pension, and was sent to Bitur in Kanpur. So the company had now established complete control over the areas of south of the Vindhyas. Expansion of the British Empire. कैसे फैला British Empire? The policies of paramountcy was initiated by the Governor General Lord Hastings. The company claimed that now its power and authority were greater than that of the Indian states. So this policy justifies its actions such as annexing kingdoms or using other means to threaten the ruler. They forced ruler to accept subsidiary alliance. मतलब force कर रहे थे वो alliance बनाने के लिए. So this policy paved way for the policies which were later formed by the British. The British faced opposition as they turned into their focus towards the annexation of smaller kingdoms. One of these kingdoms was the Kingdom of Kittur in Karnataka, whose queen Rani Chennamma opposed the British and fought against them to stop annexation of Kittur. She was captured and imprisoned in 1824. She died in 1829 in prison. जेल में उनकी मृत्यु हुई थी. However, the opposition against the British in Kittur was carried on by a prominent warrior, Raina of Sangoli, until his capture. He was hanged in 1831. So the company became concerned about Russian expansion in territory and power. They assumed that Russia might attempt to expand its influence over India by exploiting the northwest. Hence, to secure the northwest, the company fought two wars with Afghanistan between 1838 and 1842, which resulted in the indirect establishment of company rule. Sindh was taken over by the company in 1843. Sindh was taken by the British. They focused on Punjab, but the presence of Maharaj Ranjit Singh held back. After his death in 1839, two prolonged wars were fought with the Sikh kingdom. Ultimately, in 1849, Punjab was annexed. Lord Dalhousie and his expansionist policy. Lord Dalhousie became the Governor General from 1848 to 1856. He introduced a new system of annexation through his policy called the Doctrine of Lapse. This doctrine proclaimed that if an Indian ruler died without leaving behind a natural heir, his territory would automatically lapse and come under the British Satara, Nagpur, Jhansi, and many other kingdoms were annexed under this policy since it did not allow adopted heir to take over the throne. Dalhousie and Awadh. Dalhousie introduced another policy. He began annexing territories on the pretext of my governance. The Nawab of Awadh, Wajid Ali Shah, was one such ruler who was accused of misrule, misgovernance, and reluctance to introducing reforms. Awadh was annexed on these pretexts in 1856. This led to a lot of anger among the Indian soldiers and the British army, as many of them hailed from Awadh. This was also one of the reasons for the uprising of the revolt. Administrative structure of India under the British. An efficient system of civil administration and a professional, well-trained army were two of the most important features of British rule in India. The system of civil administration was set up to collect and land revenue, which was the main source of income. The army fulfilled the need of the company to expand its territories and wage wars against India rulers. Civil administration. Lord Cornwallis is generally regarded as the father of Indian civil administration. It was during his tenure as the Governor General that the structure of an independent civil service was put in place. Before his term in the office had begun, the company officials got low salaries. However, they enjoyed the freedom of making money through private trade and bribes from local rulers and traders. Okay, so this practice was stopped by Cornwallis, who replaced the corrupt, disloyal, and self-seeking officials with well-educated, honest, and loyal civil servants. He also raised their salary to 1,500 per month, यानी कि 1,500 रुपए per month. In 1800, the then Governor General Lord Wesley established Fort William College in Calcutta to train civil servants in local languages and customs. In 1806, a similar college called the Helbury College was established in England to train civil servants. From 1853, all recruits had to go through a competitive exam in order to qualify for the civil services. The ICS Act of 1861 established the Indian Civil Service. For administrative convenience, British India was divided into districts. जिलों में तब्दील हो गया था. In each district there was a collector to collect revenue, a magistrate to maintain law and order, and a judge to administer justice. है ना, इंडिया को जिलों में वो कर दिया तब्दील, फिर उसमें उस तरह से वहाँ पे कलेक्टर, मजिस्ट्रेट, ओके, जज, इनको अपॉइंट कर दिया गया. द आर्मी, द EEIC's army was disciplined and loyal. Soldiers were thoroughly trained and the use of the latest arms and ammunition and paid regularly. From the 1820s, the cavalry declined in importance and the infantry became more important. Soldiers of this regiment were trained in using musks and matchlocks. Soldiers in the company's army were mostly Indian, while the officers were exclusively British. The highest position held by an Indian soldier, also called a sepoy, was that of a subedar. During the 19th century, the British developed a uniform military culture. Soldiers were subjected to European style of training irrespective of their caste and communities. Judicial organization. The judicial system in India had no uniform code of law prior to the one introduced by the British in 1793. The Cornwallis Code was introduced, under which civil, criminal and commercial cases, beside those pertaining to land revenue and police systems, were covered. Warren Hastings and Cornwallis set up civil and criminal courts at the district level. Criminal and commercial cases beside those pertaining to land revenue and police systems were covered. Warren Hastings and Cornwallis set up civil and criminal courts at the district level. Indian law were codified in 1833 by the Law Commission. This led to the introduction of the concept of rule of law, according to which the law was the same for all, irrespective of their position, caste, religion, or economic status. However, only Europeans had special courts and were tried by British judges. The Supreme Court was established in 1774 in Calcutta, now Kolkata. So, under the Regulating Act of 1773, a graded system of courts evolved over a period of time to dispense justice. Gradually, high courts were established at Bombay, now Mumbai, Calcutta and Madras, now Chennai. The Indian judges headed subordinate courts. Okay, so everyone, all topics of this chapter are covered here. I hope you all are very well understand this chapter and enjoyed also. So we will meet you the next class. Thank you.